Hello there and welcome again to our business email etiquette program. We're covering quite a lot in this program, which is going to give you a very in-depth knowledge of what doing business with email is all about. In this particular session, we're going to take a closer look at the signature file graphics that go at the bottom of your emails. Do you use one, by the way? Most companies do. Most companies now are set up to use signature files at the bottom of their emails. An increasing number of business emailers are, however, including graphics as well, instead of or in addition to the plain text signature file. So you sometimes see a company logo, for example, that helps to make those people who are receiving the information be very aware of the company. Logos do have an image. Logos can easily be identified and people know where you're from. Also, people do this so that they make their email a little bit more interesting. It looks much better than just using plain old text. Do you use one of these? Start to think about your system and how things are running, and whether indeed your customers who write to you, do they have signature file graphics or not? Or do they just have the plain text? It's good actually to be able to put the logo of your company in your signature file, but sometimes there are problems with that. Problems come out when that graphic is identified as an attachment by Outlook. And because of that, it's handled as an attachment. And then that means that your very spiffy, your very nice-looking logo or graphic isn't displayed at all in the email as you wanted to send it out that way. It doesn't come up as you intended. It doesn't actually look like what your letter going out looks like. It also ends up in the recipient's attachment folder. And when they go to that folder to find the attachments that they want to have a look at, then they have to go through numerous signature attachments. So this can be very, very frustrating, and people really get annoyed at this, especially those that you email and where your signature file graphic doesn't turn out. So be very careful here, because this is really not a good way to make an impression. I know that I have myself received emails where the signature file has gone all astray and has been very, very messed up. And it becomes quite annoying, and you really, you get through it, but you think again about an email that comes from that person. So remember, all of these things at all times are having a great impact on the receiver. Everything you do on email has a great impact on the receiver. So here we have an instance, an example of where you're trying to do something that looks very good on your email, but in actual fact you are defeating the purpose of your email. Try to remember that your email is meant to be readable, and it is meant to leave a very professional impression on the recipient. But when things get messed up and it looks like you don't know what you're doing with technology, then you are not really leaving that very good impression, are you? So here, if you do want to make sure your signature file graphics don't fall apart, you either talk to somebody who is knowledgeable, talk to your IT department, or learn how to do it. Learn how to make sure that it won't fall apart and that it won't have a bad effect on the recipient. Mind you, I must say, signature file graphics do look good when they are kept simple and when they are in the right colors and that they are sized very well. It does look good to be able to send and also to be able to receive. You feel good. It looks professional. It feels professional. So work on it. Try to get these things organized so that they are effectively introduced into your email and effectively received. There are some do's and don'ts of signature file use. And I'd like to highlight the fact that signature files have been around for ages, even before we were aware that email existed. We do, each of us, have a signature, and this is where this comes from. When we sign off on something, normally we sign our name, we give our signature. And so therefore, in the land, the world of internet and cyberspace, when writing emails, we sign off with a signature file. Some people do also attach their signatures to some emails, but that's not really the majority of cases. So a signature file is the way that we do things. And before the internet, before the web, most people had basic contact information and included perhaps their favorite quote or something to indicate their feelings or perspective on certain issues. People really personalized the way they finished up a letter. That was the tradition. Sometimes people are still doing that if they continue to write letters. Sometimes people still do continue those traditions. And that is a very nice thing. But now, when we're working with internet, because it's quick, because it's instant and efficient, now most people use their properly left-aligned signature file as the quick identifier of who they are. Usually to the left side of the email, that is where it sits. And so people know who you are, what you do, and what kind of service you provide. Because in that signature file is your website, so people can click onto that if they need to refer to your website in an instant. So this is what we normally do now in terms of emailing. The most important reason that we use a signature file is that this allows you to promote your site or to promote what you want to do, what you are proposing in your email. And you're doing that in, let's say, an indirect way. Whether you are posting a message on a message board or emailing other site owners or participating in mailing lists, your signature file gets your basic information about you and your link to your website in front of everyone that you email, or those who may just read your post on a message board. So it is a very quick way of getting your information up there. It's easy, it's instant, it's promoting you without difficulty. And this is why we use signature files frequently, or a lot of the time. So when people see your signature file, they are looking at you in a certain way. They are associating things with you and your company, and sometimes your personality will come out in that signature file. People have memories too. They remember names and companies and things depending on what they see. So how you put that signature file together will also help the recipient remember you are selling or what you are talking about. It can also mean that when people see your signature file, they help to make up their mind that you are an astute technology user. They think, okay, this girl, she's very tech savvy. She knows how to use computers, and people like it when they know that you know how to use computers. There are a lot of us who need to brush up on our computer skills. That's a very true saying. And if you do want to succeed in business in this modern day, there is no excuse. You do have to become tech savvy. You do have to brush up on your technical skills. So learn how to put your signature file together. When people see that you've got a great signature file, they will also think that you're reasonable, you're a caring human being, and that you have a personality, that you are someone. It is a branding of you in a way. Signature files are the ultimate online passive promotion when used properly and when used effectively. I think that's a very good statement, don't you? The ultimate online passive promotion. You're not screaming out who you are. You're not listing reams and reams and reams of product line. You are just passively promoting the organization and yourself in that company. It's up to people then to click onto your website, and if they find that you have used your signature file very, very adequately, then they will do that. So bear in mind, the signature file is a very good way, a very subliminal way, in some respects, of promoting your company. It's almost like a business card in some ways, but it's stuck at the end of your email, and it's very effective, and it can be utilized because you can link to the web. Let's look at the don'ts about signature files. Let's see how we go with the don'ts. Here we can begin with point number 1. Don't point number 1, all right? And that means don't start your signature file right after the last sentence line in your email. It looks very cluttered. It's too close to the body, the content of your email. So make a point of setting up some extra breaks in your email program, or just be sure to hit enter so you go down an extra spacing when typing your email when the typing of your email is completed. So that gives you some space. It gives you a break. It's also very pleasing on the eye, because then the eye knows that the content is above and your signature file is below. That's where they can concentrate their focus in trying to read your email and get the message. Another thing that is important to do, try to keep to no more than 4 to 6 lines for your signature file. It looks sharp, it looks clean, it looks clear, it's not cluttering anything up, and therefore it just looks a whole lot more professional. So our first don't is certainly do not stick your signature file right up there with the content of your email. It just doesn't look very good. Next up, we come to the second don't. And the second don't is don't have everything about you, including the kitchen sink, in your signature file. That means don't put in all unnecessary stuff. If you have a website, include a pointer to your URL to ensure that people can find out whatever they want to find out about you. That is really what your signature file is for. So remember that the website link is the most important thing really about your signature file, because people then can then go and refer to your link, and they can get everything, all the information they want about you, or your product, or your company, etc. To have your pager, your cell, your home, your business, your work, your accreditations perhaps, and a slogan about how great you are, perhaps that might lead to the perception that you are a little bit self-enclosed, that you are self-appreciating, you are speaking a little bit too loudly about who you are and how you can be contacted, etc. So just think about that. People really only want one contact point. Email, first up. Then they may need a telephone number. Great. Your mobile telephone number is the next best thing, or your company switch number, and then give them your email address. Sometimes you have all of the information about your head office address and the actual street address, the number, the suburb, the postcode. All of that information can be found out through the website. So that's the idea of that. So bear in mind that all of this other kind of information clutters up your signature file, and it clutters up the thinking and the impression that the recipient will have of you. On every email, in ongoing conversations, or with those who are already aware of all your information, you don't really need to include your full about me information. you don't really need to include it every time. So once you have established who you're speaking with and you've got ongoing correspondence that you're dealing with, then it's not necessary to put your full signature file there every time. It does depend in the beginning of negotiations or beginning of a relationship by email. Yes, that's very important. And as you are looking for new customers, of course. But as you correspond over a period of time, it may not be necessary all the time in certain short and brief emails anyway to use the full signature file about me information. Instead, with those ongoing emails, use a simpler, less information-packed version. Maybe one that just includes your most used sign-off and your name. They know who you are. They know these details, but you can make it briefer, you can make it attractive as well. In some ways, it's like a letter and a continuation letter. It could be the same as using a formal letter. When you sign off on a formal letter for the first time, you put all the information in there. But as you develop and you come across memos and shorter, more informal letters, then you tend to use a less formal signature and sign off. So do remember that point. Depends totally on the relationship you're developing through the email communication. But at all stages, do not offend the other person. Always look professional. So I say to you, design your full signature file and then design a compact signature file for those other ongoing conversations. The third don't to follow, and this don't is, don't use quotes at the end of your emails, noting your point of view on anything. This is a very important thing to be mindful of. Be careful because you may be conveying the wrong message for your organization. If there's anything that's particularly controversial or political, these kinds of quotes in your business signature file are to be avoided at all times. This is not what you should be doing. You may feel like you want to make a comment. By all means, if you want to have a comment, then have it in person with the recipient. Have a face-to-face conversation over coffee or a drink or something like that. But if you want to be controversial, that's another matter. Certainly do not put controversial opinions and views as you sign off on your business email. There have been many witty and humorous quotes in emails, and regardless of how well intended you may think it's going to be or how funny that quote might be, somehow in the business arena it really does not fit. It really does not pay to try to be humorous in a business letter. This is not the venue. This is not the forum for that kind of communication or opinion exchanging. So when it comes to business emails, many of these quotes are plain old inappropriate. Remember that. They are inappropriate. They are not relevant. You may feel good actually. You may think that it's fun, that it looks good, but actually it doesn't really. It's not business-like. It's not professional. And do remember, your emails may be being monitored, and whatever you say is being monitored. And if you tend to use this a lot in your emails, you are then maybe going against the email policy of your organization. Be very careful. Save your quotes and noting the opinions that you might have or your point of view only for those who you know really well and who will understand that you need to have some kind of response. Here again, though, you really wouldn't want to put it in an email. If you remember the rule about if you wouldn't put a quote on your business letterhead, then don't put it at the end of your email. If you can remember that, then that will help you follow the guidelines. Would you write it at the bottom of a formal business letterhead? Would you? Perhaps not. I would say more often than not, no. And this is why we get very casual with email. And we have to pull ourselves back. We have to remind ourselves that this forum, this way of communicating by email, is still a very business professional method, and we must treat it as such. The fourth don't in your signature file, or the way you sign off an email, is don't throw in any sales hype, sales pitch that's very hype. That means that is a little bit too over the top in terms of promotional language or sales pitch language. It looks false. If you do this, your credibility online is very difficult to maintain without undermining your efforts. It means that people are not really going to take you very sincerely. It looks a bit cheap. It looks a bit nasty. So do be very, very careful when your signature files are involved here. Remember, you're representing the company and the organization. So your credibility is very, very important to you. Do refrain from really overzealous, really enthusiastic sales hype that ends in big exclamation marks, and it does tend to make the other person perceive you as a professional in sales only. It means that all you want to do is sell, 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 sell. All you need to do is have a short and sweet comment about your product or service. That is sufficient. The best way you can sell yourself in an email really is to let your website do the selling for you. This is where a professional website will be a very supportive tool in the promotion of your products and the selling and marketing of your organization and its products. So don't get too sales pitch hypey, all right? These kinds of attitudes come across in a very negative way, and you lose credibility. You don't look like you are a thorough professional. I know you see this a lot in emails. You see it a lot in newsletters that come, in sales letters that come on the internet, and they look cheap, don't you think? They look cheap and nasty. They look too much in your face. They're too false. They're not really authentic. They're there purely to throw at you and to try to get you to buy online. But that's not what you want to do with your image. You want to create a very professional image for your organization. The next don't we have is don't number 5. This is simply saying that you should not use formatting in your signature file or your business emails. This includes ASCII formatting and also font colors and bolding or graphic files instead of plain text. It really is the best approach to remember that less is best. The more you clutter up and format your signature file, the more over the top it is, the more extreme it is, and it doesn't look very appealing. Graphic files also many times are displayed as attachments. So as I said, do be aware of that. You could be contributing to the recipient's attachment folder really unnecessarily. And as I said, they do have to go through and weed through and look for the file graphics for your signature to get what they need to get to put it back into your email. So if you wouldn't put your name in a title that's bright red on your company letterhead, don't do it in an email. Just be wary. Don't try to jazz up your signature file. That's a very simple rule to follow. Don't jazz it up. It's not going to have any greater impact at all. It's just going to create mess and annoyance at the other end. Don't number 7. Don't close with your signature file reflecting anything but proper punctuation. And that means that you capitalize your name formally in the right way. You don't type in with big capital letters. If you don't type your name informally with the appropriate capitalizing, then this reflects a lack of education and a lack of business savvy. You don't need to put all caps for your name. You just need to type it correctly. That is professional. That is the correct way to do things. Don't play around with the emails. Don't think it's just such a casual forum. It is not. And remember, if you are not prepared to put it like that on a formal business letterhead, then certainly don't do that with your email communication. And our seventh don't in this part on signature files. Don't start using your signature file until you have made sure, double-checked, and reviewed that all the information is correct. Don't make mistakes, that means. Don't really destroy the email that you have spent a lot of time sending, or the discussion you've put in email format, you've spent a lot of time putting that together. Don't just lose it all by having mistakes in your signature file. We see errors every day. They are there. People have not been careful enough. And they've been too quick to try and put it together. Or when they put it together, they just didn't think hard enough about what it would look like. You need to send it to yourself and receive it so that you know, well, maybe that looks good, or no, it doesn't. You need to get somebody else to have a look at it as well. Get a bit of feedback when you're preparing your signature files. Signature files with errors lead to the perception that you lack attention to detail. And that's not not how you want to be perceived in business. You want people to see that you are correct and proper and accurate. So do make sure that you pay special attention and that everything is correct. Every telephone number. Don't put the wrong numbers for your mobile number in your signature file. People may then try to ring it, and when they find that they can't get through, then could be they give up, or they may email you back, or they just will forget it. So do be correct every single time you can be, and set it up properly the first time. If it's done the first time, you know, it's there forever. So spend some time doing it. Invest that little bit of extra time to make sure everything is correct. And now we come to the do's of signature files. These are some very simple steps to follow. And if you follow them and take note of the don'ts, then you can be guaranteed to end up with a very professional looking email, a very polished email, and your image will be out there being on the top of the list with your customers and the people that you are communicating with. So do align your signature files text with spaces rather than tabbing. Don't tab. Tab goes all over the place. So when you are aligning your signature file, just use spaces to do that. Tabs and text are displayed differently on different machines, which can make your layout look really messy and yucky, and it looks confusing. And also keep in mind that you want to keep your signature file to 70 characters or less. That is the set screen width default for most email programs. So do think about these particular points, and that will help you when you're setting up your signature file. You don't want to look messy, you don't want it to break up and be all over the place. So follow some simple guidelines here, and then you won't have any problem. Do make sure that you've got the basic information that people need to contact you. There's no need to include your email address, by the way, which I do see quite often on signature files, and it's really quite strange. If you're emailing, of course people have your email address and they don't really need to see that on your signature file. Your email address is automatically noted at the top of every email you send. So that would be repetition, and it would look a little bit silly to include it. The only time perhaps that you might include your email address in your signature file is when you are using a different or secondary email address to send the email in question. That would be the only time. So just remember that point. That's not really necessary to include your email address. The third do that you should follow is set up your email program. Actually, set it up so it's automatically going to append your signature file. So this makes it very, very easy. You don't have to add it in every single time. You've got it there in your files, and then you have your email program, bang, every time you formulate a new email or reply, your signature file is there. Make sure you include your sign-off so that you do not have to type your name with every email. This is just very straightforward. For example, you could have the following as your signature file, which automatically comes up every time. Thank you, John Smith, Widgets Pockets, that's a very strange name, but that's the name of your company. Website address is there, and maybe the slogan or one or two pieces of additional information. It looks very simple. Invest the time first with your email program to automatically append it. And then you have no problem whatsoever. You don't have to think further. What you will have to do, though, is to be aware that if there are any changes in telephone numbers or additional sites that you might like to add, for instance, those might have to be amended on your original signature file. So be aware and do those when they happen. The fourth do in our signature file session here is to certainly make sure that when you include your website address that you add the http / before your site's URL. In some email programs, it could be that without the http / the program will actually not recognize the address as a link, and it may not be clickable inside your email. Actually, one of the really great things about being able to add your website address and have it click is that every time you send your email, you have one click away from your website, and it makes it so easy for the receiver to get the information immediately. This is a great opportunity. And if you miss this out, then you might miss out on cementing your relationships further, or perhaps on somebody wanting to reply more quickly to you. You need to give information sometimes to the recipient, and when you've made it so easy for them to find that information, well, you might then have just got a brand new customer. You might then have just satisfied a problem that your writer had with your company, purely because you put at the bottom your clickable website address. It means it's instant. It means there's no extra work that reader has to do to find out information. So try to remember that making things very accessible, particularly your website, which is your face, which is representing your image and everything about your company, make that very accessible. Then you are truly being professional with your signature file and your email communication. Here we come to number 5, and the do here, the fifth do in your signature files, is that have several signatures that you can switch to depending on the tone or the issue at hand. Now, this is a very good idea and an interesting one. It means that you are quite diversified, and in some situations it may call for it. Make the effort to use them. Sometimes signature files are an excellent way of setting the tone and directing ongoing communications priority or level of formality. So sincerely or best regards or respectfully, each can be used differently depending on who you are writing to and depending on the tone that you would like to set. So if you want to be very, very formal, then you would have a very formal signature file. If you want to be less formal, then you can set up something that is less formal and click between the two. So this is something that's a little bit creative and something that is a very useful tool. You may find that you feel very comfortable being less formal, and therefore switching to your less formal signature file will set a certain comfort zone with the other party as well. Keep in mind, however, not to be too informal. Just relax a little bit and be informal in a way that is not going to jeopardize your contacts or your relationships with the person that you're writing to. Sometimes being too formal too soon with a new contact does jeopardize what you're trying to do in business. So be very, very mindful of that. You have formalities for a reason, especially in business communications. They are there for a particular reason, and so you do need to adhere to and follow some of those policies. But it is a good idea. Click between different signature sign-offs, and that way you are becoming very, very adept. You are becoming very tech savvy with your email communication. Number 6 here, our do for number 6, is that make sure you have signature files that relay a different message based on where and to whom you are emailing. For example, if you are marketing on message boards or news groups, use a signature file that reflects your new product or the current promotion that's directed to a specific audience. Different terms and words have different affectivity depending on the market. So be sure to include a call to action such as download now or contact us today about or get your free whatever. So this is a very good way of attaching to your signature files a different message depending on who you're marketing to and where you're emailing. Don't use exclamation marks or question marks. Use words only. The words speak for themselves. Download now means download now. If you add an exclamation mark, then it's excessive. It doesn't need to be. So keep it simple. You may like to use just one exclamation mark perhaps, but certainly don't buzz it with about 10 exclamation marks. That's exaggerated and that's not really relevant and it's not really necessary. We could say that the beauty of your signature file is that you do not have to say anything about your own site in the body of a posting unless it would be relevant or appropriate and it is the proper forum. So you don't need to really talk about it. It's just there in your signature file. It's a great way to be subtle. It's a great way to not having to over-explain or again go through what you do, etc. It's a very subtle way of marketing to those that you don't know as well. So keep in mind this important point, however, that the last thing you want to do is to post or send an email with a one-word answer just for the sake of getting your signature file in front of those people. You don't want to do that. That's an old trick. And actually, people will know what you're up to. They may actually complain directly to you or to other people. So you lose a bit of credibility in that. So just remember that. Your signature file stands alone. It has great power. So you don't need to damage it. You don't need to abuse it. Now we come to the 7th do. And the 7th do means do keep in mind that the perception your signature file gives will lend to the perception of who you are, what you believe in, and if you follow the roles, if you know how to use technology, or if you don't. People get to get a feel about you because of how you sign off. Just as it's important in your own written hand signature, or your own handwritten signature, just as it is important there to sign off well and nicely, so it is with your own electronic signature file. Quotes are fine, depending on the conversations and the tone of the topic. However, keep in mind who will be reading the email. Remember, who have you copied it to? That person. Think about them as well, not just the main person that you directed the email to. Try to think of how the other people on the CC list who are going to receive that email, think about how they're going to perceive you. Your character comes out in your signature file. Your character comes out in the body of your email and in the tone of your message. So keep in mind those who are going to be reading it. And if you add quotes, then you will include areas where you may be in danger of losing credibility. So humorous or controversial quotes are best left to personal email. Do you know you can write anything in a personal email? If you want to send a personal email later to that person, then go right ahead. Or indeed, if you want to speak to them on the phone, then that may be even better. But your perception or the perception of your signature file really has a great impact on your professionalism. This is a very important point to remember at all times. These are the basics that you really need to know about when we come to business email etiquette. The signature file is important. It's perhaps one of the most paramount elements of email writing. And using these tips, you'll be able to build your own personal library of signature files. Indeed, I have about 5 or 6 different signature files, depending on the nature of the business I'm involved in, the nature of the client, depending on whether it is a personal email or a business email, and all sorts of things like that. So do be creative. Start to build your own library of signature files, and you'll find that this will help you immensely. Create the right message. Create the right image when you're sending your emails. And don't forget, always update and work on your signature file. There may be something new you want to add. There may be something new you want to say about yourself or your business. As I said, you may find that you have extended your services and extended your product base, and therefore you might wish to add a secondary website. It could be that you've now merged with another company and your slogan has changed, or you have an additional service slogan and you might like to add that too to your signature file. So remember, these things are not set in stone. They are meant to be reviewed, just as a lot of things are in the communication process. So to ensure that everything's correct and professional, review them from time to time and update them. Not too often, you don't want to confuse your recipients, but update them in a way that still maintains your professionalism in every respect. I do hope that you've taken away some very good pointers here in signature files, how important they are, the impact that they can have on yourself and your business, your own personal signature files and your professional signature files are indeed very, very important. So from now on, begin to take note. As you see emails come in, look at the signature files. If you don't like the way yours has been designed, then by all means, talk with your colleagues, make sure that there is some uniformity about your signature files and see how you can improve upon what people see in the signature files. Make sure it's uniform amongst your department. Thank you very much for your attention in this particular session. And I'm sure that now you will realize the importance of emailing and how important it is when we sign off and we send emails to our very important customers and our important business colleagues. Thank you and goodbye.